This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy is joining me today. Tomorrow we're on radio only, by the way. I think we're knocked off or something, like NASCAR or something.
Yeah, for 2 days.
Yeah. But today is a national holiday.
It is? Well, I know President's Day was earlier this week.
It is.
Yesterday was Love Your Pet Day.
It was?
It was,
Today is, you're going to laugh at this, but it's true. It's LeBron Day. Yeah,
according to who?
Well, let me explain it. It used to be after the All-Star game, play resumed last night. But it did not resume last night. Play resumes tomorrow night. So tonight, players get a day off because LeBron championed to Commissioner Adam Silver a longer All-Star break. LeBron went to the commissioner and said, "Commissioner, it's not really a break. You ask us to go to these cities, All-Star weekend. We go out there and support the league. We deserve a real break." And so the commissioner extended, due to LeBron campaigning for himself and other players to get a longer break. Today is LeBron Day in America. Basketball players who play professionally get an extra day off. By the way, LeBron also voiced concern about the number of back-to-backs in the league. He once again said to the commissioner, "We're making these owners a lot of money. TV ratings are up. We play 82 games a year minimum, often 15 more in the playoffs." And the commissioner extended the season by a week, therefore fewer back-to-backs. Should be noted the NBA All-Star game this year was better than it's been in years. Why? Because LeBron decided to play defense and the players followed suit. I don't think LeBron's going to win the MVP this season, and he didn't win it last year because some point guard got 10 rebounds a game. But is valuable also influential and impactful? Isn't valuable mood-altering, legislation-changing? Then LeBron has no peer. Should be noted the NBA in the last 2 weeks has talked about this 1-16 playoff format. Why would that be? You know why. Because if LeBron bolts to the Lakers or goes anywhere west, including Golden State, ESPN and TNT, who pay $1.4 billion a year, will complain. We get the Eastern Conference? We don't even get LeBron? Today is National LeBron Day. He campaigned for 2 more days off for NBA players. They got it. He changed the All-Star game. Fewer backs-to-backs. 1-16 seeding considered now due to LeBron. So when you write most valuable player, you fill that ballot out for a guy with a beard in Houston. Just remember who is the most impactful player in the league. And as far as I can tell, impact equals valuable. Also want to shift to this before I bring on my guest, Mark Schlereth. Dak Prescott, according to Jaws, Ron Jaworski, lost confidence last season. We have a tape of this. Let's play it.
At the end of the day, players got to make plays. And I think Dak started to lose some confidence. You know, and when Dak loses confidence, like all quarterbacks, you lose a little bit. You're not willing to pull that trigger. Also, year 2, I've always felt, I've been around this game since 1973. Year 2, defenses now have studied you in year 1. They know everything that you do. They got 30 guys, little wonks in the corner watching the tape, you know, and they're going to make you play to your weakness. And they forced Dak to do some things that he was not comfortable doing.
Listen, the Dak story is really easy to explain. His first year was the perfect storm. His offense in Dallas had almost no injuries. There were no expectations or pressure. Nobody had NFL film on him. Philadelphia in the division was an absolute rebuilding wreck. And the schedule was really easy. They went 8-0 against the NFC North and the AFC North. Cincy, Bears, Detroit, Cleveland, Baltimore were just bad. It was the perfect storm. Dak is not a great quarterback talent, but he's a franchise guy. Slightly better, in my opinion, than a guy like Kirk Cousins. Barely. You know what Dak reminds me of? Jeremy Lin in the NBA. Jeremy Lin, for about an hour, was great. But there was a reason Jeremy Lin with the New York Knicks, much like Dak Prescott, was great. It was the perfect storm. Do you remember that? Mike D'Antoni was the head coach of New York, who, by the way, makes every point guard from Steve Nash to Chris Paul to James Harden a Hall of Famer. In New York, it was a desperate basketball city that hadn't been good in years, elevating a good kid and an interesting story. It was also a lockout year, so young players, fresher legs had an advantage. They were jamming games together. Jeremy Lin got onto a winning streak, and the first 5 wins were against 5 terrible teams. And also that year, Baron Davis, Amari Stoudemire, and Melo were hurt, and somebody had to score. And Lin is not a bad offensive player, though he's a limited basketball player. Jeremy Lin's an NBA player, but it was the perfect storm. And for Dak Prescott, so was year one. He's not a great player. He's a 4th-round pick. He's a good kid. He's sturdy, available. But if you looked in the NFC today, and you start listing quarterbacks, I have him at 13. Maybe move him up or down a slot. He ain't Rodgers, Wilson, Wentz, Breeze, Garoppolo, Stafford, Cam, Ryan, Goff, and I don't think he's Alex Smith, and I'm not sure he's Jameis. Dak had the perfect storm year one. And like Jeremy Lin, he's a pro athlete, but our expectations were warped. And with that, I bring in my friend, Fox NFL analyst, 3 Super Bowl rings. His name is Mark Schlereth, and he is joining us on the couch today. By the way, what do you make of Jaws saying Dak lost confidence? He just didn't feel the same.
Oh, I think that happens to all of us. You play a game at a high level, and you don't have the success you once had. I mean, that's just a natural progression.
Did you ever lose confidence?
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. There was times when I thought, I can't block anybody, So the difference is that when you play the game that I played, as opposed to being a quarterback or as opposed to being a pitcher or whatever, like you may not be playing well, but you can always turn it into a street fight. And here's what happens to you when you turn it into a street fight is that it doesn't look pretty on film, but you don't cost your team a game, and the announcers aren't talking about how bad you are.
That's right. You can hide to some degree in your world.
Right.
You can hide in the middle of the O-line.
Absolutely. You just come up there and you just try to drive block everything when you're struggling in pass protection. You try to bloody somebody's nose, and it looks ugly. But the bottom line is you don't cost your team the football game. And meanwhile, you're trying to figure out your technique. You're trying to figure everything else. But, it's unlike golf. I said I've always been a horrible golfer because I apply common sense to golf. And golf isn't a common sense sport. Like the easier I swing, the further the ball goes. And everything I've done in my life says, hey, when it's not going well, apply more pressure, right? That's not golf. That's not being a pitcher in baseball. That's not being a quarterback. That's being a grunt laborer offensive lineman. Like right. You can do that, but you can't do it at those positions. So yeah, when you lose confidence, I think it just becomes, it becomes far more evident when you play a position like quarterback or when you're a big league pitcher.
Let me ask you about this Kirk Cousins thing. So years and years ago, I can remember this, that Jerry Reinsdorf owned the Chicago White Sox. And They gave Albert Bell this huge contract. And it pissed off other owners. They're like, you just opened the door to a nightmare. So the New York Jets are saying, we'll give Kirk Cousins a fully guaranteed contract. And my takeaway is, well, that's not going to play well in the owner's room. Because if Kirk Cousins gets one, what is Drew Brees going to say?
Absolutely.
I think this is a tipping point move that the quarterbacks become so valuable that the Jets may fully guarantee a 4-year deal, and it would make the Jets the most unpopular team in this league among other owners. Sure. Is that a stretch?
No, I don't think it's a stretch at all. And I think if you're Kirk Cousins and the Jets are willing to give you a fully guaranteed contract, and let's call it 5 years, $50 million, and they've reported, if you read all the articles, $60 million in the first year. Okay? And you're going to have, $100 million worth of cap space. So actually, the last 4 years of that contract, you're averaging $22.5 million a year. So it's a very doable situation for the Jets, but you've opened up Pandora's box. But here's the pressure on Kirk Cousins. if all of a sudden they're willing to give you the first fully guaranteed contract in NFL history, you become, Kurt Flood from baseball, you become Reggie White from football in free agency. You become that guy who was the first guy to get a fully guaranteed contract, and you open up the floodgates for everybody else. Aaron Rodgers coming up, Drew Brees.
The pressure would be enormous.
I think the Players Association would call him and say, dude, like, he's a conscientious young man.
He's a good kid.
He's a good kid. They're like, you owe it to the guys behind you to get this done.
See, I think Kirk Cousins doesn't want to be Brock Osweiler. I think he wants to go to Denver, take less, and win games. Because, I mean, you can be a rich failure. The second word failure sticks longer with the public than rich, because everybody in sports is rich. But if he took $18 million in Denver, he'd win some football games. But to your point, will Kirk Cousins feel this enormous pressure from other players and agents and the Players Association to take the Jets deal? I think there's a real possibility there.
I think so, and I don't think it's ego-driven. I don't think it's one of those situations like, I want to be the first. I think it's more about the rest of the league going, you need to get this done because now you are the first, and now it's done. There's nothing in the collective bargaining agreement between the NFL and the Players Association that says you can't fully guarantee a contract.
And nobody does it.
Nobody does it, but there's nothing that says you can't. And if you do it, then it's the next quarterback, the next quarterback, the next quarterback. Then eventually it becomes Aaron Donald. Well, why can't I get a fully guaranteed contract? And then like I think is something that is eventually going to happen. And I think he's going to get a boatload of pressure from the Players Association and other players to say, you need to take this deal. You need to do this for the rest of us.
So there's a story out. I had a theory. I don't want to lay out my entire theory yet, but I called it about a year ago. I said this is going to be Andrew Luck's lost season, and that Chris Ballard took over the job last January and said, Luck's hurt. This roster's awful. I got the wrong coach, and my GM I just replaced, it was a boob. And so he sat down with Oliver Luck and Andrew Luck and said, we're not going to tell anybody this. I'm not going to tell my owner this. You're not going to play this year. You're just going to get healthy. He flipped the roster, 26 new guys. Bad record ensures we get a good draft pick. Andrew gets healthy, and I can fire Pagano. Well, what do you know? They got the offensive coach in. They've got a number 3 pick, which they could sell for other picks, and Andrew Luck is healthy. The story is today, Andrew Luck says, I feel fantastic, which is funny because the season just ended. 3 months ago, he's in Dusseldorf. Today, the shoulder's fine, and my theory is, because he got the right coach, and now it's all good. That's my theory on Andrew Luck, that he could have played 6 months ago. They weren't letting him near this team with Pagano, with this roster. What do you make of his story in the last year? What is happening?
I think players want to play. So, I mean, I don't think that Andrew Luck would sit down and go, yeah, you know what, that sounds great. I'll take a year off. That just is completely counterintuitive to what I know players to be. I think he was legitimately hurt, and I think he legitimately struggled with his shoulder. I would say this. Do you think there's any validity to Josh McDaniel looks at the situation and said, I coached Jacoby Brissett. I know what he is. Andrew Luck, I don't trust that he'll ever be healthy. That roster is not very good, and I don't have a legitimate quarterback. Maybe this New England thing looks good. I'm just going to go back to New England, and I think I'm going to be the head coach when Bill Belichick retires. I feel more comfortable here than I feel going forward with Andrew Luck. I will tell you this, as a guy who's had a boatload of surgery, the toughest thing to do to come back from surgery is to admit that you're no longer what you once were. And I always told guys, if you're waiting to be 100%, you'll wait yourself right out of the league because you'll never be 100% again. And what you have to be able to do if you're Andrew Luck or you're anybody else is you have to reestablish what your 100% is. It may be 80% of what you used to be, but that's good enough. Colin, I don't know about you, but this is a guy trait. I look in the mirror, I still see 23.
I know. I feel I feel like I've never been better.
Right, and you're like, I know
amazing.
that I don't look 23 anymore, but that's what I see. Like when Snacks was here, Damon Harrison, I was like, oh yeah, I could do one-on-ones with Snacks right now. Like I'm stupid enough to believe that if you gave me a helmet right now, we'll go one-on-one. Like he'd break me like a piece of peanut brittle. But in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm still good. And I think one of the hardest things to do as an athlete is to realize I'm not what I once was. Could I still be very effective? Could I still be great? Yes. But if you're waiting to be exactly and feel exactly like you did before the injury, you will never feel that way again. When was the last time you ever heard a doctor ever operate on a guy and come out of the operation and go, whoa, I'll be lucky to ever walk again. I really screwed that one up. It was late night last night, went out to dinner with my wife. They always come out and say, oh, successful surgery. Like, if he doesn't come back, it's his fault. I was great in there. You should have seen me. I operated, my butt off.
So
like,
you
don't
think a lot
ever
of these
see
surgeries don't go great?
What's that?
By the way, the last surgery my wife had did not go well.
Right.
She had wrist surgery. Wrist is worse.
Well, and I'm just telling you, so the mental, coming back from injury, the mental perspective of that is so much harder than the physical perspective, because you're not, like, I think especially for us that are athletes in type A, you always think of yourself at your prime. Like, you still think of yourself as, when you were in high school and you were dunking a basketball and you had a 38-inch vertical jump and you could do all these things. And that's not who you are anymore. And it's hard to deal with.
It's good seeing you, my man.
Likewise. It's a pleasure.
That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah. You look good, too, by the way.
You look 24.
You guys are having a love fest over there.
Yeah, a couple of young guys.
Yeah.
Kidding. Love my car, but it's reached an age, speaking of age, where it needs an extended warranty, and that's where CarShield comes in. Listen, it's a great idea. We all know you buy a car, first 3 years, it's all buttoned up. All the warranties, tires, engine, plugs, converters, yeah. But then all of a sudden, year 4 and 5, and a water pump could cost you $600. It goes out, you don't have a warranty, and you get hosed. That's where CarShield comes in. Sign up today, 24/7 roadside assistance, rental car while yours is in the shop. Okay, it'll cover your car's GPS, your computer, electronics, any repair, torque converter, and I don't even know what that is. Save yourself high repair bills. Get covered by CarShield. Either go to carshield.com, code HERD, that saves you 10%. A deductible may apply. Or just call 800-CAR-6100. 800-CAR-6100. And mention the code HERD. carshield.com.